by dawn. Those showers also affecting northwest England by the end of the morning. Any early rain clears out of the way from East Anglia in the southeast, though, and so for the southern half of the UK, it's mostly dry by the afternoon with sunny spells, feeling warm in that sunshine, low to mid-20s, whilst 18 to 21 Celsius more likely for Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England, with a freshening breeze later on Friday and some strong winds in the west of Scotland overnight as we start the weekend. Further showers coming along as well, but mostly dry to the south, and actually it's mostly dry on Saturday in southern parts of the UK with further showers and a blustery breeze further north. Sunday starts dry with rain later.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to The Briefing. I'm Esther McVeigh and here's what's coming up over the next hour. It's a big day for many students across the country who are opening A-level, T-level and B-Tech results. It's the first time since 2019 that students have sat public exams after 2 years of cancellations because of COVID. Both Tory leadership candidates pledged to fix the Northern Ireland protocol at the Belfast hustings yesterday. I will be speaking to former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Arlene Foster, about what she made of the candidates' pictures. And yet again, commuters across the country face a fresh wave of disruption today as 45,000 railway workers go on strike. I'll be speaking with travel expert Simon Calder about this. But give me your political briefing. Send in your views and opinions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews.
Good afternoon, it's 1 minute past 12. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB Newsroom. A-level results are out and grades received by students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland are lower this year than the last 2 years. They do, however, remain higher than pre-pandemic levels, the last time students physically sat exams. Meanwhile, the number of students accepted onto degree courses has also fallen by 2% this year, but it's still the second highest rate on record. Education Secretary James Cleverly said there's support in place for students following the results.
We wanted to get the grades back towards the kind of levels that we saw pre-pandemic. We've taken a big step in that right direction. 2/3 of students getting their first or reserve place at university, and that is great. And for those students who haven't quite got the grades that they were hoping for, and that happens every year, there's a whole range of support both at school, university and at clearing to help them get onto a great course for them.
The Secretary-General of the RMT union says there'll be waves of public sector workers joining in with strike action amid rising inflation and falling wages. That's as rail, tube and bus passengers face further travel disruption amid 3 days of industrial action over pay and conditions. Rail services will be affected today and Saturday, with tubes and buses in London disrupted tomorrow. Mick Lynch told GB News he wants a square deal for his union members.
We're not holding the ransom. We're making no demands on the public. We're making demands on our employers. What the employers have said to us is that we want to make thousands of your people redundant. They won't even give us a number, but we believe it to be in excess of 5,000 of our members. We get many messages from the public, from the travelling public, fellow workers, people on our picket line here at Euston, who are saying we're really in tune with you because we're being treated the same way, or we've been robbed of all those conditions. The British working people are not getting a square deal off their employers. That's all we're asking for.
MP Margaret Ferrier has pleaded guilty to breaching COVID regulations in September 2020. At Glasgow Sheriff Court this morning, she admitted to travelling by train between Scotland and London despite being told to self-isolate. She also admitted to willfully exposing people to the risk of infection, illness and death. A 44-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder following the stabbing of Thomas O'Halloran in West London. The 87-year-old grandfather was stabbed to death whilst riding his mobility scooter in Greenford on Tuesday. Former Labour MP Stephen Pound paid tribute to his former constituent, describing him as a huge character.
He'd sit there holding court in the cafe opposite Tesco's in Greenford, and it was like his mobility scooter was like a throne, because he'd be sitting there and people would be coming up and he'd give bits. When I was an MP, he used to give me lots of advice, and not always advice that I wanted, but he was always there. And such a high-profile, sweet, gentle man who the last thing he did on earth before he was killed was to raise money for Ukrainian refugees in need. That was his last act.
Elsewhere, 3 people have been killed, including a teenager, during severe storms in Corsica. 45,000 homes have been left without electricity after hurricane-force winds hit the island. A 13-year-old girl was killed when a tree fell at a campsite. A 72-year-old woman died when her car was struck by a beach hut roof. And the third victim was killed when a tree fell on a house. In Kabul, at least 21 people have been killed and dozens injured after an explosion at a mosque in Afghanistan. The blast happened in the capital during evening prayers yesterday. The imam of the mosque was among those killed, and authorities say the death toll could rise. No one has yet claimed responsibility for the blast. And the mother of 12-year-old Archie Battersby is campaigning for a new law named after her son. Holly Dance is calling for a change to the system regarding end-of-life cases. Archie's family made multiple court appeals to continue his treatment, but he died on the 6th of August after being taken off life support. Speaking to GB News for the first time since her son's death, Holly said cases like Archie's are taking their toll on families.
There's been another baby, his life support was withdrawn 2 days after Archie. There's another case that was in court yesterday. It's the stress placed on us by the system. It's something that's got to change. We've written to the Health Secretary, so moving forward to see what we can change. I think the whole thing that you're rushed into court, that's got to change.
This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now, though, it's back to Esther with the briefing.
Thanks, Rhiannon. Now, A-level results came out today following a warning to students that they should prepare themselves for lower grades and increase competition for university places. Leading figures in the education sector said that tens of thousands of students look set for disappointment this year, with 80,000 fewer A's and A stars than last year. Well, joining me now to discuss the story further is former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Buckingham, Sir Anthony Selden. Hello, Anthony. Should students feel hard done by this year?
I think it's tough on the students, isn't it? Because they have had, in every way, such a really hard time with their A-levels and they are the COVID generation, and now they're taking a hit on their A-level results, which are significantly down, and next year's A-level students will be down still more. So yeah, I mean, you can't say anything else than it's been very, very tough on them.
But obviously, you've been in this profession a long time, and you've no doubt seen people, this grade inflation, even the creation of A stars. Is that the right way to go?
Well, and I was a headmaster for some 20 years, so I mean, I've seen it on both sides. And grade inflation, like inflation, household in the country knows at the moment is not good. I mean, inflation devalues what has gone before. So there's no doubt that it's right to get the percentages of grades back to where it was before COVID. That's right, but it's also true to say that it is a big hit on this current generation who clearly have been through much, worked incredibly hard. And I hope, like everybody, that they're very pleased today with their results. The truth is that many will not have made their first offers if they are going to university. And they're the very, very clear advice from me, and I'm sure from everybody else, is look forward. Don't look backwards. Don't look at what might have been. Look at the amazing opportunities that are available to you. Sure, maybe not your first choice opportunity of a university and a course, but there are so many other courses at universities, so many choices, including 2-year degrees, as at the University of Buckingham. I mean, use the disappointment, if those listening are disappointed or their parents are listening, as an opportunity. And, you can make even more of your life than if you had just gone forwards to what you'd expected to do.
Those are wise words, Anthony, there, because I'm wondering if this year could be a turning point for many people to see all of the opportunities that are there, whether that is apprenticeships, whether that's going into work and progressing that way, rather than, as people have felt for some time, just going to university, whether it was for them or not.
Spot on. I mean, there's something inherently wrong about the fact that that our young people at schools are gunned towards getting top grades without giving them the skills that they need for the workplace, or the well-being skills that they need to live a life, with far too little thought about what they really want to do in life. What do they love most to do? What do they want to do? Do they want to go to university at all? University is not for everybody. Some will be better off going to work, maybe go to uni later on, maybe do apprenticeships. So it's all about, I think, exactly as you say, it's about seizing the opportunity, getting off a treadmill, recognizing that at 18 you are in charge of your life properly for the first time ever, and you can make dazzling decisions for yourself, which will serve you brilliantly for the rest of your life, and make the most of this opportunity if indeed you haven't got what you wanted. Do not put your heads down.
Now, I want to ask you a totally different question, because you've definitely had and still continue to have a dazzling career there. And you've written biographies about Thatcher, Major, Brown, Blair, Cameron and May. So what are you making of the leadership race and the two finalists in that race?
Well, I think that for the Conservative Party, they're doing a lot better than Labour in terms of giving opportunity to women and to people from all different backgrounds, aren't they? So many of the candidates were other than the usual run of white male candidates of a certain age. I think that is fantastic for our democracy. I think both are really promising. I think they've got very different strengths, haven't they? And one far better as a speaker and a communicator, Liz Truss, one really deeply thoughtful, not the least about the economy, Rishi Sunak. And I think, as you know yourself from your lifetime in politics, no Prime Minister is able to combine all the qualities that you need. I mean, Boris Johnson had many of the qualities that you need in buckets to be Prime Minister, but he was also very deficient in some others. The key thing, I think, and Boris Johnson never got this right, is to appoint people who compensate for your deficiencies, because you'll never have a full set of the skills of the Prime Minister. And whoever it is, likely Liz Truss, obviously, if she can compensate by her appointments for people for the qualities that she doesn't have, then she could be heading towards a successful premiership.
And if you were the headmaster doing an end-of-year report for Liz and Rishi, what would you be writing, or maybe advice for next year?
I think the advice would be very much don't promise too much. Be careful what you're promising, because the danger is that they're promising all kinds of good things, which in the beleaguered state of the economy and with the war in Ukraine and with the after effects of COVID, which we've seen obviously in the A-level results today, there's so many problems. It's hard to think of a premiership since, well, Margaret Thatcher in 1979, which has been a harder inheritance. So don't raise aspirations which inside yourself, you know, both Rishi and Liz Truss will know that they can't fulfill. Be realistic.
Anthony Selden, thank you for joining us. Thank you very much indeed. Now, sales data shows that today is the biggest day for school uniform shopping, with parents up and down the country preparing to send their children back to school at the start of September. But during the cost of living crisis, many are finding it harder to afford the essentials. I'm delighted to say I'm joined now by Kate Hardcastle, MBE, who is encouraging parents to make or mend school uniforms before splashing out any money. So, some people might say, is that a little bit condescending there, make and mend?
Not being condescending at all. It's a lesson I've had to learn the hard way, Esther, and it's good to see you again. I think it's about trying to give us the confidence as parents that we can step outside of the messaging that seems to be all around us at this time of year about buying new. And there's a sustainability and environmental element to that, as well as the important one, which is trying to give people a bit of relief on their budgets right now. So I've gone through the process of learning how to do it. I was making all kind of schoolgirl errors. I mean, I thought fabric softener was all right on the uniform and tumble drying was all right in the uniform. But I've learned from the fabric experts that actually when you treat these items with a bit of TLC, they'll last longer. And when it comes to school shoes, particularly so. So I think it's not about doing anything other than giving a point of reassurance that we don't always have to fall into the trap of buying new.
Listen, Kate, you know, I agree with you. You're spot on. I think the other thing is, I remember my mum, and most people do that, got me a skirt. My first year senior school, they sort of went down to the ground so it would last forever. Unfortunately, I didn't grow too much, so it remained down to the floor for the rest of my days. But the good thing now, when I went to school, you had to go to the school uniform shops, which were very expensive. Now the supermarkets are doing them, and you can get a bargain, can't you?
You can, but actually you will probably know, and it's always worth reminding people that if you buy against the buying cycle, you're always going to get the best deals. And sometimes when we can reach up a little bit in our budget by buying a bargain, but getting quality for that bargain, we can make those things last longer. I've been able to make shoes last longer with some tips from StartRight, because they've taught me how to care for those leather shoes, making sure the kids just don't rip them off at the end of the day, and unbuckling them and fastening them properly when they jump in puddles, which happens all the time with my son, putting in some crumpled up paper rather than just banging them on the radiator like I used to get that long last. And I've been able to make school shoes last a year, and the cost per wear is actually cheaper than some of the value brands that way. So I think it's not always about buying the cheapest, it's about buying the best value we can for our money. But if you're always going to be in a situation where in August you do have to buy uniform, then it's going to be probably at its most premium level. I've been trying to buy against those shopping cycles, so at Christmas time, and then if I buy a few sizes up, putting them away for a rainy day, and then the kids can grow into them. And talk about buying sizes too big. I'm all about that. You can do it with shoes and get some wiggle room in there, but certainly Wonderweb is my friend. I am not a seamstress, but I do not mind hemming trousers to make them last a bit longer.
Yeah, and I think what would be your sort of number one advice to parents? I mean, because really what you're also saying to parents there is make sure your children are looking after their clothes as well. So it is a little bit of discipline to your children, isn't it? If you say, unbuckle your shoes properly, make sure you don't chuck them in a corner, make sure you polish them. So this really is a little bit of education of parents to children.
Look, I just want to make a bit of a wider point here, which I think we've got to do so much when it comes to our children's education on the basics and also on finances. We can be really worried that we don't want to overload that pressure, but children can be incredibly responsive to the idea that actually if they understand the value of things, they will help look after it too. And we've gone through that as a family. We've had to talk about money much more recently. They're going to pick up the messages anyway. So that reassurance of explaining what you're doing to try and counterbalance that within your budgets can actually really help them be really responsive and responsible to making things last longer. As I said, there's an environmental and ethical element to it too, because it means that less things end up in landfill. And also having a conversation. Let's take the taboo out of the challenge. Most of us, half of families and households are going to feel the stress point when it comes to finances over the next few months, if not already. So by having a conversation, look, can we swap some uniform? You've got a child older than mine. Having those friends groups, taking the pinch out of it and having conversations amongst family and friends, I think it's one of the best things we can do for our mental health too. There's no hiding from the fact that costs are rising. So the more we can get inventive, look after things and have conversations about the realism of it all, I think the better. And children can be involved in that too.
Yeah, wise words. Share that sort of knowledge, share that experience, know what you're doing, how you're saving. And as you say, that's wise words there from Kate. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Coming up, I'll be speaking to former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Arlene Foster, about what she made of the candidates' pictures in Belfast yesterday. But first, it's time for the weather.
Hi there, Aidan McGivern here with the latest forecast from the Met Office. A lot of cloud across the UK today, and that cloud bringing some outbreaks of rain towards the west. But in the south and the southeast, it's mostly dry, just a few showers, certainly a lot calmer compared with recent days' activities. A weather front is moving into west and northwestern areas. That's bringing the thicker cloud and some showery outbreaks of rain. So for Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's already been a damp start, and that rain now moving into northern England, North and West Wales, and some of it turning up into Cornwall later. Most of it's light and on and off. It will be more moderate over hills, and it'll be turning more showery later. A few showers also in East Anglia, but these not as heavy as recent days. Sunshine in between, 26 Celsius the high in the southeast, with low 20s further north and northwest, or high teens. Some moderate to heavy showers crossing Scotland overnight, and then the main area of rain pushes into central and southern parts of the UK. Again, turning more showery, some heavy downpours by the morning, particularly towards East Anglia. 17 Celsius in the southeast, so reasonably warm, but clearer spells further northwest, and so a fresher night to come. And further showers arriving into central and western Scotland, Northern Ireland by dawn. Those showers also affecting northwest England by the end of the morning. Any early rain clears out of the way from East Anglia in the southeast though, and so for the southern half of the UK, it's mostly dry by the afternoon with sunny spells, feeling warm in that sunshine, low to mid-20s, whilst 18 to 21 Celsius more likely for Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England, with a freshening breeze later on Friday and some strong winds in the west of Scotland overnight as we start the weekend. Further showers coming along as well, but mostly dry to the south, and actually it's mostly dry on Saturday in southern parts of the UK, with further showers and a blustery breeze further north. Sunday starts dry with rain later.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GBNews.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to the briefing. The time is now 12:24. The Tory leadership hopefuls Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak have both pledged to sort out the Northern Ireland Protocol at Belfast hosting. Rishi Sunak said he would fix the protocol, and Truss said that the protocol is undermining the Good Friday Agreement. To discuss the hustings further, I'm delighted to say I'm now joined by the former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Arlene Foster. So what did you make of their pictures yesterday?
Yeah, well, Northern Ireland, as you know, doesn't have very many Conservative members. I think there's about 600 in total. And there were 200 there yesterday listening to both of the Conservative candidates. Obviously, Stormont came up quite a lot. But how were they going to get the parties back into Stormont? And that, of course, led on to the discussion around the Northern Ireland Protocol. And you're right, Esther. They both said that they were going to fix the protocol. I think people will all welcome that. But being from Northern Ireland, we're always looking for nuances, and we're always looking to see the differences between the two candidates. And I think that most people see that Liz Truss is probably stronger on the Northern Ireland Protocol and how she's going to deal with it than Rishi Sunak, although he said very clearly that there was very little difference between the two of them, and they would both continue with the Northern Ireland Protocol bill, which is currently, as you know, in the House of Parliament. Other issues, of course, that came up, as you would expect, right across the UK, cost of living, how they're going to deal with the energy crisis, inflation, but also how they were going to deal with the crisis in the NHS. Rishi Sunak very clearly saying that there was a need to be bold in dealing with the NHS, that he would be radical in dealing with that. And I think we'll have to wait and see what his plans are in relation to that. But I think it went well. The members afterwards, I think, were glad that they had made the effort to come and engage with the members here in Northern Ireland. But as you would expect, the protocol was the top of the agenda.
And then equally, we were discussing yesterday the cull, as it were, in the number of civil servants and public sector workers, and that in Northern Ireland there are a lot. Did that come up as an issue on sort of jobs support for the area?
Well, people wanted to hear very carefully how they were going to support Northern Ireland. Liz Truss was saying that post-Brexit she wanted the whole of the UK to benefit from the benefits of being outside of the European Union. She talked about free ports and the fact that Northern Ireland should have a free port at Northern Ireland. As you know, Esther, we have a very large public sector vis-a-vis the private sector here in Northern Ireland. There are a lot of people employed by the public sector. We did have some redundancies during my time as finance minister and back even before that. But I think it has increased again. And I think there is a need to look at the efficacy of the civil service, not only in Northern Ireland, but right across the UK. And hopefully whoever ends up at number 10 Downing Street will take that on and deal with that issue.
Interesting you say Liz Truss was talking about free ports when really that's something that Rishi Sunak's been doing, something that was very much driven from him in the Treasury. Did he get any credit for that, or was really Liz Truss the strongest performer last night?
Well, I think what she wanted to say was that there were benefits from Brexit. Of course, we in Northern Ireland, those of us who voted for Brexit, believed that there were benefits from Brexit. But because of the Northern Ireland Protocol, we haven't seen those benefits. And like the rest of the UK, we do want to see a focus on the growth of the economy moving forward. I think it is important that we see that coming not just in the southeast and in London, but right across the UK. And the levelling up agenda has to be meaningful, it has to be real. And to do that, of course, the first step in all of that is to deal with the Northern Ireland Protocol, because the EU have now said, as well as wanting checks on goods coming from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, they also want to know what the government's going to do about checking goods coming from Northern Ireland to Great Britain. I mean, they are ratcheting up this whole issue around the protocol instead of looking for solutions. That's hugely regrettable. Does it surprise me? No, it does not, because they've always used Northern Ireland as a way in which to punish the United Kingdom for leaving the European Union.
And then David Trimble's widow seems that she's now supporting Liz Truss. What do you think about her decision to do that?
Well, I thought it was interesting because at the hustings, Rishi Sunak was the person who mentioned David Trimble. He mentioned him in the context of being the person who's seen the importance of East-West relationships. And of course, that is very much a fundamental part of the Belfast Agreement. So he was talking about David Trimble at the hustings. But I understand that Liz Truss actually visited Lord Trimble's widow yesterday, and Lady Daphne Trimble made it very clear that one of the last things she discussed with her late husband was the fact that he supported Liz Truss, and she has now put that on record. And I'm sure that the Truss campaign will very much welcome that.
Arlene Foster, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Now, coming up, I'll be speaking with Kevin Maguire and Andrew Pearce to digest the big stories of the week, including the latest in the race to be Prime Minister. But first, here's your news update with Rhiannon.
Thank you, Esther. It's 12:30. Your top stories from the GB newsroom. A-level results are out and grades received by students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland are lower this year than the last 2 years. They do, however, remain higher than pre-pandemic levels. Meanwhile, the number of students accepted onto degree courses has also fallen by 2% this year, according to UCAS, but it is still the second highest rate on record. Former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Buckingham, Sir Anthony Selden, told GB News it's right that grade inflation is down.
Grade inflation, like inflation, household in the country knows at the moment is not good. I mean, inflation devalues what has gone before. So there's no doubt that it's right to get the percentages of grades back to where it was before COVID. That's right, but it's also true to say that it is a big hit on this current generation.
The Secretary-General of the RMT Union says there'll be waves of public sector workers joining in with strike action amid rising inflation and falling wages. Rail, tube and bus passengers face further travel disruption amid 3 days of industrial action. 80% of train services will be affected today as more than 40,000 workers walk out in a long-running dispute over pay and conditions. A 44-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder following the stabbing of Thomas O'Halloran in West London. The 87-year-old grandfather was stabbed to death whilst riding his mobility scooter in Greenford on Tuesday. Police say the arrest was made as a result of the CCTV images released yesterday. And scientists have found evidence of an asteroid crater beneath the North Atlantic Ocean, million years old. It's thought to have crashed down around the same time as the asteroid that wiped out dinosaurs. Researchers think the crater, found off the coast of Guinea in West Africa, was caused by a 400-metre wide asteroid. Remarkable stuff. TV online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. It's back to Esther with the briefing in just a moment.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. Now, as the number of migrants arriving in the UK this year tops 20,000, GB News has witnessed the cat-and-mouse tactics between French police and those migrants. Authorities there face an almost impossible task of mounting effective patrols over the many miles of French coastline. Over days of filming, our team saw police using beach buggies to intercept groups of migrants before dispersing them with tear gas. But the gangs are simply regrouping and making a dash for the sea again. Our Home and Security editor, Mark White, has this exclusive report.
Pushing off from the northwest coast of France, the latest group of Channel migrants attempting to cross into UK waters. Our drone footage perfectly illustrates how every inch of space on this small boat is taken up with its human cargo. We counted 50 people clambering on board this inflatable, some struggling to get to the boat as it picks up speed.
Look, he's running back.
We're at Gravelines, between Calais and Dunkirk, one of the people smugglers' favoured locations for attempting the crossing. Over days of filming, we witnessed the cat-and-mouse tactics of the police and migrants. From what we saw, French authorities are trying to stop the crossings, using beach buggies to try to intercept groups as they emerge from the dunes, firing tear gas to disperse the migrants. But in truth, despite some successes, there are far too many miles of coastline here for police to mount a fully effective presence. And although these groups are often chased back into the dunes, the people smugglers simply marshal them again. And when the police move down the beach to chase their next group, they make a dash for the sea. The local lifeguards have become used to multiple daily small boat launches. They're not officially allowed to intervene, but have helped when the boats get into difficulties.
It's sad, you know. We see children, we see the man with his wife, and it's dangerous. So.
The evidence of these migrants is everywhere around here. Discarded clothing littering the shoreline and the dunes along this tourist beach. The local tour guide says it's not just a UK and French issue, that the European Union has to do more.
I went to swimming and I saw a boat, a long boat with I don't know how many people in there, and we were a little bit shocked. I was scared for them because they were too much on the boat.
As concerning as the small boat crisis undoubtedly is for those in the UK, particularly in Kent, for people living here along the northwest coast of France, the impact is huge. In this supermarket car park in Dunkirk, we found this group of Eritreans just sitting around drinking Jack Daniels and smoking cannabis in broad daylight, waiting here until their next attempt to get to the UK.
Do you know anyone in the UK?
UK. In UK. I have UK for me. I have UK.
You know people?
I have UK for me.
The people smuggling industry is big business for the criminal gangs, who can net millions of pounds a day. They've become expert at reading the prevailing tide and weather conditions. These life jackets are hardly even hidden among the dunes, waiting for the next group to grab them as they attempt to cross. And we discovered personal papers and other documents discarded by the migrants on the instructions of the people smugglers to make identifying them more difficult for UK authorities. Among the papers, application forms for asylum in countries including Belgium. Further down the beach, more evidence of the French police tactic of slashing and puncturing these inflatables if they can get to them in time. But although some of those initial attempts are frustrated, the vast majority of small boats and their human cargo make it across the English Channel. More than 20,500 so far this year, to add to the tens of thousands who've already entered the UK asylum system. Mark White, GB News.
Now let's take a look at the other big stories that's happening this week. I know I'm joined now by Andrew Pearce. I don't know if Andrew's been interfering with Kevin Maguire's connections, but he hasn't been able to join us just yet, so it's you having the first say. What I was going to say was a lot has been talked about the two people who might become the next Prime Minister. But let's talk about the chap who is still Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. A lot is being made at the moment that he's on holiday.
Look, he is on holiday, and the optic isn't great, is it, Esther? Very nice to see you, by the way. And it's not sad not to have Kevin Maguire here because he doesn't talk a lot of sense anyway, let's be honest. But look, the Prime Minister has had hardly any holiday in the last 3 years. He's been through a pretty difficult time. He's had COVID. He's had to deal with the pandemic, the Ukraine war, one thing after another. And effectively, he's running a zombie government. You know that, because what can he do about the cost of living crisis? He can't impose anything on his successor, who will be in the job in less than 3 weeks. And it is going to be Liz Truss. I think she performed very well in that hustings last night. She told me when I spoke to her last week at a hustings, there'll be an emergency budget within 2 to 3 weeks. So we haven't got that long to wait for action.
I remember at the time when people were concerned about how long the leadership race could take. They went, Boris Johnson will still be Prime Minister. He could be changing things. He could be altering things. So in a way, it's pick a lane, pick any lane. Is it now you're worried he's on holiday, or was it that you were worried he was actually going to make these fundamental changes in his last few weeks?
He can't win, can he? That's the point here. He's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't. And people who complain about a Tory cult choosing the next Prime Minister, look, this is how it's happened for years and years and years. And if this was a Labour Prime Minister who'd walked away and there was a leadership contest, Esther, it would have been taking 3 or even 4 months because they have to consult the whole trade union movement, the broader membership. It would take weeks and weeks. I think it's taken too long, and I think both Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss would say it's taken too long. Most of the members have voted already, and we've seen a poll today, I think, on Conservative Homes suggesting that of those people who voted, Liz Truss is up at 68, 69, maybe even 70%. If you wanted to do an honourable thing here, you know, the former Chancellor could throw in the towel and say, I've lost, let's just get the new Prime Minister into number 10 next week.
Many of us would say you can't do that. You've got to keep going. There is a timetable. We are on recess. And really, you could say it's actually helping them both, really sort of perfecting their art of public debate, maybe even sharpening what their policies would be. So I wouldn't say call it a halt and hand over to Liz Truss, though you're quite right, she is in the lead. So don't you think it's right they should carry on to the end?
I hear that, but my worry is that people will look at this and think, what a distraction. Why is it taking so long to complete this contest? A general election would be done much quicker. This is going to take 2 months. You'd get a general election, I think, in 6 weeks. And people we know are really, really genuinely worried about how they're going to pay their bills. They don't get the £400 until, October. Every family will get that. We know that there'll be urgent aid for families, but I just think people may look at the Tory party and think this is a bit of an indulgence at a time when the country is going through arguably the worst crisis it's been in probably for 40 years, if not longer.
And of course, the Labour leader's been on holiday as well. So there does seem to have been a vacuum at the top. But somebody else I want to talk about, you might well be a fan, but it seems to me this week is the week that possibly Trump is going to make an audacious comeback. Who would have believed it, on the back of what seemed like a political stitch-up and the FBI raiding his home?
Well, the FBI raiding his home was a gift for Donald Trump. It looked like an establishment stitch-up. We now know the Attorney General authorised it. I can see dopey Joe Biden's fingerprints all over this too. It's cast Trump in the role of a victim. He plays that role very well. We saw what happened to Liz Cheney, his great rival on that congressional committee, who's trying to stop him ever being president, humiliated in that election this week. Trump is back, if in fact he ever left. And who would bet against him, Esther, becoming the front runner, if not the candidate, next time round? He's got a grip on the base of the Republican Party. He's the darling of the party membership, in the same way I might say Boris Johnson is the darling of the Tory party membership, and still is, in my view.
Well, all we know is Trump surged in the polls, went up by about 34%. It would put him doing better than he would have done when he became president. And you're right, there is articles in the paper today about the red wall seats and the voters there, and they're missing Boris. They do seem to want him back. They want this character, they want this energy, they want a personality.
Look, I know he made mistakes and he got Partygate badly wrong, and if he'd been a bit more truthful about what did or didn't happen, he'd still be there. Boris is a flawed character, we know that, but people know that when they voted for him. They factored that in. He won with a huge majority, 80-seat majority, the biggest since Margaret Thatcher in 1987. And if they hadn't kicked him out, we wouldn't be going on about a zombie government. He'd be cracking on with potentially Rishi Sunak as his chancellor or somebody else in getting on with sorting out the cost of living crisis. He's a huge, towering political figure, flawed and all, but who isn't a flawed personality? And that's talking flawed personalities, still no sign of Kevin Maguire, I noticed. He's strict.
And I don't think he's going to get here either. I do. I think you've done a sneaky disconnection of his phone or his iPad there. But going back to Liz being a front runner, who do you think she'll have as her team? Because for me, this is the most important thing. What will be their key policies, but who is that team going to be to deliver for the country?
Well, I hope she's going to stick to her guns about tax cuts, because we know that when she gets into number 10, the Treasury will start wringing their hands in despair, saying this is the wrong time for tax cuts, Prime Minister. It isn't. We've got to put more money back in people's pockets and let them choose how to spend that themselves. I hear that she's going to make somebody like the Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng her Chancellor of the Exchequer, but it's who she's going to have as head of the policy unit. We want someone there coming up with really good, serious policy ideas to revitalise the Tory party. We've been in power. The Tory party government's been in power for 12 years. It may not feel like that because we've had Cameron, Theresa May, we have to remember her, Boris Johnson, and now a fourth Prime Minister. We want a policy renaissance to show that the Tories haven't run out of steam. Because look, Labour are doing nothing. The plan that Keir Starmer eventually came up with last week after the Liberal Democrats and after Gordon Brown has been ridiculed by most respectable think tanks. Labour are in a policy vacuum. Labour are all over the place. So it's still for the Tories to win that next general election, Esther, because we are blessed by the fact Labour have got one of the worst leaders they've ever had, and they've had quite a few bad ones in the last few years.
Andrew Pearce, never mincing your words, saying it like it is. Great for you to be on the show today. Fantastic. Now, at the start of the show, we spoke about A-level results with Anthony Seldon, and here's what the Secretary of State for Education, James Cleverly, had to say on The Breakfast Show with Eamon and Rosie this morning.
Well, firstly, I want to say a massive thank you to the teaching profession who have meant that those in-person exams can happen for the first time in years, and a huge thank you and congratulations to the students themselves who have gone through a really turbulent couple of years and are now getting those grades through. And actually there is lots of good news. There are more students taking up their first place or reserve place offers than we saw in 2019, which was the last year when we had full exam results. We're seeing the plan that we had collectively put in place, which is to get those grades back to the pre-pandemic norms. That's happening. And what I would say, and I know it's a really tough time of year, I've got teenage boys myself, the oldest of whom has gone through this, is that if for whatever reason you didn't quite get the grades that you were expecting, and that happens every year, remember, that happens every year, to get on the phone, get in contact with your school, get in contact with your university of preference, because you may well still be able to get on that course. And if that doesn't work, we have the clearing system, which is geared up to match students to courses and institutions. And you've got to remember, we have more young people training to be doctors now than before. The numbers are going up. We're recruiting more medical professionals. But we recognise that in those incredibly competitive courses, not everybody can get on them. And of course, that's disappointing for the individuals involved. But that's the tough decision, the tough trade-off that we've decided to make. I would never want to discourage someone from going to university, but for us in the department and in the government, it's about making sure there is a wide range of really good quality options for young people. So I'm wearing this TL badge, that stands for T-levels, and they're a new qualification awarded for the first time this year, about 1,000 students, equivalent to 3 A-levels, technical, vocationally orientated, because we know that about half of students, actually over half of students, don't go on to university. They go on to apprenticeships of some sort or directly into the world of work. Those are really important and valuable life choices. We want to make sure that young people have credible options, both in the traditionally academic, but also in really good quality vocational training as well. I did a vocational degree. I'm very proud of that fact. And what we want to see is young people have a full range of top quality choices. That's what we continue working towards.
James Cleverly there at Westminster. So on to train strikes now. Only 1 in 5 trains will be running today as the so-called summer of discontent continues in the UK, with thousands of union members striking over pay, jobs and conditions. It comes as new data shows that 2022 has been the worst year for train reliability in Britain since records began. Joining me now to discuss the ongoing industrial action is travel journalist Simon Calder. Great to see you there, but the most unreliable train service since record began. And that's nothing to do with strikes. That's just a bad service that's being provided for the public.
Well, it shows, Esther, that the fact that the railways in the UK are suffering from massive underinvestment, and that's partly actually what HS2 is designed to deal with by allowing, taking some of the strain off the lines between the north of England, the Midlands and London. And it also reflects, I think, the fact that, frankly, we are back to the 80s in terms of industrial relations. Certainly, we're seeing widespread cancellations even on normal days, which, if you take Avanti West Coast, those are going to continue for another 3.5 weeks at least, reducing the service from Manchester and from Birmingham to just 1 an hour instead of 3 an hour. And they say it's because of the toxic industrial relations in the industry. Meanwhile, right across the nation, as you say, about 1 train in 5 is 4 or 5 is running today. Vast amounts of the country completely without trains. So, for example, almost all of Wales, apart from the line from Cardiff towards London and also a few lines into the valleys, no trains at all there. And in Scotland, nothing north of Falkirk is running today. And that's even without Transport for Wales and ScotRail being on strike. It's just the effect of 5,000 signallers from Network Rail who have stopped work today in pursuit of their demands for pay.
Simon, you talk about the railways and the underinvestment. I'm on the train all the time. I spend more time on the train than not on the train. And can I tell you, my train is frequently stopped because somebody hasn't arrived for work. That's not underinvestment. That's not interested maybe in your job. There's something going wrong there. You need to be on time for your job and disciplined so the train can go for everybody else who's working around the country.
Look, absolutely. I am very, very despondent about the way that the railways are going at the moment. I think what the unions are basically saying to their members, and look, you will know because you travel even more than I do on the train, that most of the frontline staff are absolutely great and they're doing a good job. But they have been assured by their unions that as the train drivers, the main union, the RMT, and also TSSA, the white collar union, they've been assured, right, brothers and sisters, we know that there is an endless bucket of money to pay us. So, we're just going to keep going on strike until the government cave in. I fear that may be misplaced expectations because at the moment we've actually got the most pro-rail Prime Minister and Transport Secretary from the Conservative Party that we have had for decades. And guess what? Well, you were just talking to Andrew Pearce about the next leader of the Conservative Party. Whoever it is going to be looking around for cuts. They're going to say, how much are we pouring in to keep Esther and Simon's trains running? We're going to have to cut back on that. And I think we're at a really dangerous time.
Simon, if we can, because we're coming to the end of the show, just a quick answer here. I'm wondering, will the rail workers be losing the support of the country? I'm looking at, say, York races yesterday. People couldn't travel across the country and they had to hand back hundreds of thousands of pounds of refunds. They are ruining jobs for people, retail, leisure for people. Are they losing the support of the public? Is this strike a bad idea?
Oh, I think all strikes generally are a bad idea for everybody involved, but there is a massive dispute between the trade union movement and ultimately the government. Grant Shapps is sort of slightly missing in action at the moment, and all that's happening is that the passenger is suffering, losing faith in the rail industry, and that is just a sign of a spiral of decline. I am very sorry to say.
I'll have to bring it to an end there. Thank you for joining us today. You've been watching The Briefing with me, Esther McVeigh. That's all we've got time for. I'll be back 10 a.m. on Saturday, but next up, it's Liam Halligan with On the Money, and I'll leave you with the weather.
Hi there, Aidan McGibbon here with the latest forecast from the Met Office. A lot of cloud across the UK today, and that cloud bringing some outbreaks of rain towards the west, but in the south and the southeast, it's mostly dry, just a few showers, certainly a lot calmer compared with recent days' activities. A weather front is moving into west and northwestern areas. That's bringing the thicker cloud and some showery outbreaks of rain. So for Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's already been a damp start, and that rain now moving into northern England, North and West Wales, and some of it turning up into Cornwall later. Most of it's light and on and off. It will be more moderate over hills, and it'll be turning more showery later. A few showers also in East Anglia, but these not as heavy as recent days. Sunshine in between, 26 Celsius the high in the southeast, with low 20s further north and northwest, or high teens. Some moderate to heavy showers crossing Scotland overnight, and then the main area of rain pushes into central and southern parts of the UK. Again, turning more showery, some heavy downpours by the morning, particularly towards East Anglia. 17 Celsius in the southeast, so reasonably warm, but clearer spells further northwest, and so a fresher night to come, and further showers arriving into central and western Scotland, northern